What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Ramble cast. It's been a while. So I am joined by the ever-present,
Matt the Vet.
yes, of Fearless Games,
I am Alvarius.
a thing that I'm a part of. Both things, the Alfarius part and the Fearless Games part.
So we are Alvarius and Omegon.
Yes. So,
There
yeah,
are two of them. Don't forget.
they are, but they aren't, but
Team
there is.
Omegon. Hashtag.
Hashtag. Well, you're supposed to put the hashtag first, but... but,
Well, it's an afterthought.
well,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm switching it around. I'm causing chaos.
Jeez. But that's the thing with the Alpha Legion stuff. Everything that we know is a lie, but isn't a lie, but might be a lie, but it's kind of true, but isn't, but is. Welcome to Conspiracy Theory 101 in 40K. But
First, lesson 1. Blame the Alpha Legion.
yes,
Lesson 2. Don't be mad at the Alpha Legion. Lesson 3. Are you sure you don't want to blame the Alpha Legion?
basically. But with that said, Matt, you've been a guest and a helper here at the Ramble casting a bit.
Yes.
And we do this little thing called Fearless Games as well, the two of us.
Yes.
You might have heard about it.
Maybe, possibly.
Possibly.
Who knows?
Check it out. So, what makes you tick, as they would say in interviews, the really annoying interviews? Let's get down to the
my
real
heart,
you.
my lungs,
Hmm.
and the spirit that embodies my body that makes me me.
All right, good night, everybody. No, but for those who don't know, we call him Matt the Vet because he is the one of our crew that's been into the hobby the longest.
Very long time.
So, can you give us a total time thus far?
Okay. 1 second. I have to do some mathing.
Tough.
Yes, it is tough because it was a long time ago since I actually started this, and it was okay. Doing some mathing. 1 minute. Sorry, I came
problem.
unprepared for this.
That was the goal. No, but
Let's see. It's 2018, right?
as far as I know.
Let's see. I've been roughly playing for 20 years because I started with 3rd Ed.
Wow, 20 years, gentlemen and gentle germs and ladies. So that's longer than probably a good chunk of the player base.
That's 3 years less than the age of the Phoenix Lord models.
There you go. See, there you go. That's good. That's definitely longer than me. Although I'm over a decade, but I have to think more about that later. But
I know for at least you were in at like the tail end of 4th, right into 5th Ed. Because that's when I jumped back in.
Well, I had a lot of time in 4th, so I was in for a good chunk of 4th.
Yeah.
I was in 4th was still growing before it waned, and then
Yes.
went into 5th. A lot of 3rd Ed codices were still around when I got in, so
Yep.
they were still doing that thing.
Yep. I think the 2nd edition 3rd Ed Dark Angels Codex was what you were using.
Yes, that was back in the day when they did those things. But
I remember those good old days. I think. Do I have it? Yes, I do have the Space Marine 3rd Ed Codex, so I can play Dark Angels in 3rd.
I have that codex too. But it was simpler times. Not
The
really.
glory days where people called it the best edition, 3rd edition.
But also annoying editions back when you did things in percentages, where it's like 25% of your force. I'm like, how I can't even do 25% of anything. What do you mean 25% of my force has to be this?
Thankfully, when I jumped into 3rd, that was all in the fantasy end, and we only had to gauge if our games were 2,000 points or not, because then things got different.
Right. It was one of those things where it was weird in that regard. It was just
You
kind of
needed permission to play Azrael.
which was the dumbest concept. I'm glad they got rid of the whole permission thing because it's like he's in the book. It's not like I made up the rules. He's right there. It's like
Yep. So in his entry in third ed, it says you can field Azrael, Supreme Grandmaster of the Dark Angels, in 2,000 point games or more, where both players have agreed to field special characters.
Right. So basically, if they want to field Marneus Calgar, same deal. If you want to field whomever,
Yep.
basically the same
Ragnar
deal.
the Blackmane,
Yeah.
Eldrad Uthwin.
Yeah, this was back when also those models didn't look quite as bad as they do now because we didn't have the advances in model technology that we have now.
They looked good by comparison.
Well, that and they looked not even like they looked adequate. They looked
Yeah.
agreeable. Like they
They
looked like
looked how they looked.
yeah. But nowadays with models looking so good, they just look comical. But
Especially Ragnar.
oh god, Najal Stormcaller is even worse. He's doing jumping jacks in his power
Yes,
armor.
he is.
So
Yes, he is. The only ones that I think suffered more, and I know this is bad because even the guy that actually made them I didn't realize it until the guy who made them pointed it out. The Phoenix Lords have Mardi Gras-sized heads.
they do. But I like any Phoenix Lord model over Najal.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. But after he's like, I'd make their heads smaller, I was like, whoa, their heads are big.
Yeah, but all that knowledge. So,
Yes.
so with that, we got 20 years in the game. What for you and for me and for a lot of the more old timey players out there, we have a gateway into this hobby, right? We didn't have. I mean, were there video games? Yes. Were they popular? No. Were they so like you had the original PlayStation 1 PC like 95 Windows Space Hulk. And then you had like
And Gates of Chaos.
Gates of Chaos, and you had this this turn-based strategy game with live action video.
Yep.
And I own that game. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right
Which
now.
one do you own? The one that's with the Tyranids, the ones with the orcs?
No,
or
the one I think it's the one that's on Armageddon or whatever. It's with Commissar Holt and the Ultramarines. Yes.
The guy that I use in my Dornbor videos
Yes, Commissar Holt.
for Striker.
Now, don't get me wrong. While it was funny because the Space Marines were not to scale because they're just people in suits, they were really nice suits. They looked the part very
They
well.
spent quite a bit of money to make those suits.
They looked really good, and there was even a Space Hulk one for Space Wolves, where it's a Space Wolf Terminator, and it looked really
Yes.
good. But like it looked good. It's just that the Terminator stands the same height as a dude because it was a dude wearing it, so it was really not to scale. But that was great. One of my favorite lines is Commissar Halt, and he's talking to the Planetary Governor, and he just refers to him as Halt, and then Halt slaps him and goes, "Commissar Halt," and it's just like. I was just like, yes, that was fantastic. And they tried to do the whole illusion of height by having the Ultramarines constantly standing behind people.
Behind him.
So
Yep.
it looks like they're farther away. But
Yep.
it's like you can't, that only works to a certain degree. Not like he's standing a football field away.
Now here's the funny thing that I never thought of. I was wondering why they never thought of. They could have just put the Space Marine on an apple box.
They could have.
I mean, how do you think
the 70s show did.
Stallone's not as tall as you think he is? If you watch Dredd in the first scene where he brings Rob Schneider, he's walking onto an apple box so he could look taller.
Yeah, and in that 70s show, Mila Kunis stands on a box when she's next to the other girl, the other lead girl, so she could not be so ridiculously short. So yeah, I don't know why it just didn't. I guess because they'd pan out and you see them walking, and I don't know, whatever, right? They didn't have Lord of the Rings tactics back then, so for making things shorter or taller. But my point is, we didn't have Dawn of War or Space Marine or stuff that could be true gateways into the hobby. For meaning where players today could get into 40K for 40K's sake. It wasn't like, I like this. Oh, check out this, which is in the same vein. Let me get into it. So what? I'm just gonna throw this out there because outside of Star Wars, which is always a good gateway to anything, what would be what got you looking at 40K?
What actually got me into looking into the whole thing
Yeah,
was
what got you pick up the book and go, these things.
Well, this was, let's see, when I was in high school at the time. Was I in high school? High school? Was pretty sure it was high school. And the I was sitting in science class looking at my Star Wars collectible cards because I collected the Star Wars original CCG game, the one that was unplayable, so no one played it. We just all collected the cards.
Oh man, I was the same way, but with the BattleTech CCG, and nobody collected it but me. So it could have been playable. I just knew nobody who played it.
And I was looking at my cards, and I turned to my friend who was sitting next to me, and I went, if you played the Star Wars CCG, if you collected the Star Wars CCG game, we'd have something to talk about right now. And he turned to me and went, well, if you played Warhammer 40,000, we'd have something to talk about. And I was like, what? And then he plopped down the Eldar Codex and went, this. And I went, what is this glorious thing I have never seen until now? And that weekend, I requested I be taken to the only hobby shop at the time that carried 40K, and went up to the counter, and the guy's like, what do you want? It's like, please, sir, I'd like to learn this 40K thing. And that's where it all started.
Yes, that's a friend doing the friend thing of getting somebody addicted to something.
Yes.
But
back in my day, it was cool to get into drugs. For me, 40K.
Yes, exactly. But no, it's true. I mean, back when I was in high school, a good friend of mine, and I, we did Magic the Gathering. I collected BattleTech on my own, and like BattleTech stuff, we played Magic the Gathering. We would talk Lord of the Rings, talk Star Wars, general nerd stuff. And we actually did Mage Night.
Mage Night.
We did Mage Night because we're like, we can't afford that. We would learn that 40K. It's like, there's no way we can afford that, nor do we know how to put it together. But Mage Night comes everything's ready to go. We just click the bases.
Boom!
So we played when Mage Night first came out, and it was just Mage Night, not anything fancy. We got started in that a little bit. We did that. We dabbled in that, but it was just the two of us, and quickly we kind of like, we don't even know if we're doing this right. So that didn't go too far, but that's. I remember being in like the library of a high school, looking up stuff for like history class, right? And it's just certain keywords such as dreadnought, because that was a class of ship. In World War II and whatnot, I would type things up, and good old image search would pull up what you were looking at, and then it would pull up an ultramarine dreadnought, and I'm like, that's not a ship. What is this? And it's always for me the trifecta, or the quadfecta, if you will, that got me going. What is this? I would see it was Space Marine Dreadnought, the Elder Wraith Knight.
Such a good mini.
It is a nice mini. The Tau. Like any PAL battlesuit, just pick a battlesuit, and the monolith. Those four things where I was just like, okay. At first you had my curiosity.
I actually participated in the GW Grand Yay Necrons Are Coming to 40K event, where we were so proud because we took down one of the 3 monoliths they brought to the game. It took 6 Earthshakers, but we did it.
Hooray! We killed a monolith. Yeah, tough things. And I was, part of what got me into it were those things, because being a BattleTech guy, actually having BattleTech miniature that I just collected for the sake of collecting, I was like, what are these things? It's like, this doesn't look right. But as I kind of suspected, Star Wars was mentioned it there at some point.
And actually 40K was how I pseudo met Phil.
Right.
It was in college. We both took I think it was Primitive World History and Development, and we had to do a presentation talking about how society today presents what primitive is to people. And I decided to do a presentation on Warhammer 40,000, and I stood up and I go, so has anyone here know about Warhammer 40K? And Phil raised his hand going, I do. And I was like, oh, what do you play? He's like, oh, I don't play. I've just heard it before. And then, a year later, now, just to clarify here, we've saw each other frequently that year. It wasn't like a year later I ran into him again. It was we've been hanging out for a year. And he slapped his backpack down once, and I recognized his backpack and went, "You're the guy from my Primitive History World class." And he points at me and goes, "You're the one who did the 40K presentation."
Yeah. Sometimes we're not the most observant bunches, are we? But
No, we're not.
but yeah, no, that's good that you did a 40K presentation for Primitive.
Yes, I use the orcs as an example of a civilized of a primitive society, and then I use the Tyranids as an example of a primitive, just animal. Don't even bother with. They can't be reasoned with. They're just basically cows.
Just basically, well, those are just some mean cows, but
Yes, but and then I use like they use how the orcs use a lot of how like Cockney and terminology and such, and they just really ramp up like how they are uncivilized was how I was using. I use the orcs as an example of how Britain portrays uncivilized manners and uncivilized behaviors.
it's true. It's very true with the orcs. They're basically working class British people.
Oi!
That's basically how they're portrayed.
It is,
and we can, and you know, it's by British people doing it, so it's self-hating, so it's fine. But you know, that's true, man. That's the difference between a research college and I guess the where you guys went until he transfers. We did no such thing as presentations. At all until you got to like grad level class numbers, like 400 classes, which I only took one of, and then that's like my one and only presentation I did in college. So
I did a lot of like public speaking classes, and
obviously you're gonna speak.
And a lot of film production stuff, and we had to do a lot of presentations.
Right. So clearly, Eldar got your eye.
Yep.
Now.
Especially the Fire Prism. Oh, that model I fell in love with instantly.
The Fire Prism is a good model.
And this was the one where it was the giant metal diamond sitting on the back.
Yeah, it was basically the kunai knife on the back of a wave serpent.
Yep. But, you had to do so many tricks to get that wave serpent not to be pitching up.
Yeah, well, yeah, you put like a 5-pound weight on it. I mean,
what I ended up doing was I put green stuff around the hole and jammed the flight stand into it, so there was no space for the wave serpent to move.
That's one way to do it for sure. So Eldar got you to open the door into 40K.
Yep.
When you walk through, Eldar was the first force you collected?
Eldar was the first force that I collected. I went into... It was funny. I had my mind set. I was like, I want to play Eldar because the Eldar looked freaking cool. Granted, I didn't see any of the Space Marines, any of the orcs. All I saw was Eldar, and I was like, Eldar, Eldar, Eldar. And the guy was like, maybe you should play with the Eldar first because you might not like them so great, because this was back where they were powerful, but they weren't Dark Eldar level of if you didn't know what you're doing, you're screwed. But yes. they were up there. You did need to know a little bit more about them. They in essence, they weren't Space Marines.
They had a higher learning curve.
Yeah. So he sits me down, he plays a test game, and he's like, "So you still want to play Eldar?" And I already made this decision walking in. I was like, "Yes, Eldar now." And I bought a box of Guardians, a Warlock, and got myself going. And yeah, that's when I started with them. And then later on, this is why I'm a little unsure of the time dates, because I'm fairly certain I'm fairly certain it was first year of high school. Like that's where I'm not 100% sure on.
Right.
Because the way I discovered the Dark Angels is another buddy in high school who I met through my same friend who got me in, we're talking about the Eldar and all that jazz, and that's when I discovered that this one dude played the Dark Angels. And so I picked up I said, huh, let me look into these guys. So I picked up their codex because the codex for them was like $10 because it was the baby codex that you needed the Space Marine codex for. So it was 20 for the Space Marine codex and $10 for the Dark Angel codex. And I'm looking through them like, huh, okay, these dudes they're cool. They're green. They're green. I was all over that because green was my favorite color. Green is still kind of my favorite color. I do like green a lot. And so I'm looking at them, and my buddy, this guy, starts, he's like, oh, another Dark Angel player, awesome. And he starts talking about stuff that I'm like, what? About, because it's not in the Dark Angels Third Ed Codex had very little fluff in it.
Yes, it did.
And he's like, oh, well, this is all in the Second Ed Codex here. And he lets me borrow his Second Ed Codex. And that's when I learn about Lionel Johnson and Luthor and the whole Horus Heresy. And that's when I was like, oh, these dudes are awesome. And that's when I started collecting Dark Angels.
Gotcha. So, looking back on it, if you were given, I guess, better representation of the factions, would you have still went in on the Eldar first?
Probably, because I liked their aesthetics out of all of them, and I just liked their background. They were the ones that I learned the most about out of all of the factions. Again, once I saw that fire prism tank, I was like, I don't think, even if I was just told about all the armies without seeing a single image, I would have probably been on the fence. But as soon as I went into a shop and saw the fire prism, because it was a very popular model at the time, once I saw that, I'd be like, done. And though at the time, I was a little better at managing my finances and such because I was only getting like $20 a week at that time. And so it was kind of like equal parts. So one week I would buy an Eldar kit. Then the next week I'd buy a Dark Angels kit. And I kept them pretty good. And I had roughly about, I want to say, 3,000 or 4,000 points worth of Dark Angels and Eldar with no Titan. This was before, well, no, that actually wasn't before because Armorcast was still a thing. But this was before Titans became mainstream, back when they did have rules, but no one ever played with them because they were $100 and that was expensive back then.
Yes.
Is like back in the day, I could buy this is just to put a little bit of perspective. The Land Raider was the most expensive GW unit, and it was only $50. And tactical squads were $20. My Farseers were like $10, not even. So back then on Armorcast, and actually surprisingly, Armorcast was one of those things where I knew that the models existed, but nobody could tell me how to get them.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's, and that is true about Armorcast. That you had to figure out how to get it.
You needed to know somebody who already had the catalog, because by the time I got into it, they were kind of on their way out, because Armorcast did a few of the of the regular GW vehicles, and then they kind of pittered out, and then they just started doing epic models. And again, it was hard to find, and eventually that's when I remember buying the first Imperial Armor book and seeing a Warhound Titan for the first time. I was like, what?
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
And I would stare. I used to, at high school, on my free period, I would go to the lounge room for the seniors, and I would just go to the Forge World website because I knew me and my friends discovered the Forge World website, and I would just stare at the Thunderhawk and go, that would be a real cool model to have one day, and I don't think I ever will. And just so people know, I'm staring at a Thunderhawk right now on my desk.
There you go.
And, that was also what they had, the pewter Thunderhawk. I used to go, how can I get one of those?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you had to get a background check to buy one of those because it's a deadly weapon.
It was limited edition, individually numbered. By the time I got in, they were already sold out.
I think they came in actual wooden boxes.
They did. They came in wooden boxes with the Imperial Eagle burnt onto it and individually numbered.
That'd be shipped by freight because it weighed 2,000 pounds, basically. It's like...
such a cool mini.
It was really cool. But that is true about ArmorCast, though, because I remember ArmorCast because ArmorCast made the biggest Battletech models for a long time.
Yes.
Like, they made a really tall Battletech, Titan-sized, basically, Battletech stuff.
Yep.
Up to, like, I want to say 2006 or so, really. They were still pumping those things out and supporting it. And I just followed it, and I just never had the opportunity to purchase one. So I knew about ArmorCast. And for those that may not know, ArmorCast is still around. They do bases, cinematic effects.
They do bases, cinematic effects, and miniatures for fantasy like D&D, like companies.
And they sell decals through Jim Fridge's Gnomish Workshop, which is basically just ArmorCast.
And the only problem right now with them is the fact that they only take PayPal.
Yeah, they're very. They're surprising, in the way that they are still in business. Not because their stuff's bad, but because the way that they accept payment and do stuff is not a way a business would do it to stay in business. Yeah. It's like.
But usually, if you see somebody with like a Space Marine with like a weird, cool like muzzle flash effect, most likely they bought them from ArmorCast.
Yeah, they really kind of pioneered that. Which, when you think about it, it's like. Why did it take so long to pioneer that? But they did. Okay, so now with that, let's cut to 40K in the here and now. If you were getting into 40K now, with how things are presented to us, would it be the same choices you made?
Let's see. Chances are, if I had to best guess what I would most likely get into today, if I just started, it would probably be the Dark Angels because, relatively speaking, Space Marine stuff is the easiest to get your hands on.
True.
Eldar, I think I would still get into them because they're elves, and I kind of like elves.
Gotcha.
But I probably wouldn't have the biggest backlog that I have right now.
Yeah.
But I think if anything were different, I think eventually I would have ended up with the same army collection, but I think I would have started with Space Marines right off the get-go, because I most likely would have bought the Dark Vengeance set or the new one for 8th edition. Yeah. I forget what the name is or the Burning of Prospero and the Betrayal of Calth sets. I probably would have bought those box sets for the deals, so I would have definitely been into Space Marines right off the bat.
Yeah, you see, when I think about it, I'm not so sure because how, for me, like the Horus Heresy, for example, was something when we were in the hobby, getting our roots planted, you had to dig for, like an archaeologist.
Yeah, we didn't have Black Library back then.
No, I mean, Black Industries and Black Library were kind of a thing, but it was more so like, hey, there are novels printed. Okay, well, we'll print them out through this name. It wasn't like here's the Horus Heresy series. It was more like, here's something that is 40K in a novel form. Yep. Read it. It's like, okay, sure, Angel of Darkness, here it is, or whatever it is. Like, but as far as the Horus Heresy being like, there was no kit on GW's site or anything like that. So with Burning of Prospero being a thing, I don't know what I would do getting in nowadays. I do know that the two biggest things I would be straight into the Imperial Knights. I know because coming from that BattleTech fandom that I'm still in, I feel like it's a mech. Why,
Yes.
hurry up and take my money. But but at the same time, I would know if this was just back then getting into it, I'd be like, it's a mech and I can't afford it. So it'll be, I think I'll get Custodes. It would be Custodes, or Necrons would have a much bigger role.
Custodes would have been, if like today, Custodian Guard may have been a bigger choice for me because they do look cool. Surprisingly, when I did get back into 40K, I immediately went to Eldar and Dark Angels. And
nice. Well, familiarity and stuff.
But I went back to the three that I stopped at collecting, which was Dark Angels, Eldar, and Necrons. And then from there, it just spiraled out of control with the Eldar.
Right. I just like the Dark Angels with their robes. That's what really drew me to the Dark Angels. I don't know about you. Their monastic look.
I had my Dark Angel army was 100% the pewter Dark Angel mini.
Nice.
I had like 5 or 6 10-man squads of just the pewter mini.
Like, what I liked about that and with the Dark Angels is and why I like the Custodes so much. I blame on Tyrael. Diablo 2 Tyrael, that armored up, faceless, robed, angelic figure. Granted, completely different color scheme, more in line with the Custodes, but had the robes. The Dark Angels have the robes. Had hard armor, inhuman, because he's an angel. Dark Angels are completely armored up, and like any self-respecting warrior should, put their helmet on. But follow Ferris's footsteps. Put your helmet on. And even though it was green armor and bone armor and black armor, it was that monastic, semi-angelic feel, which is funny because the Blood Angels are the angelic host, literally, of 40K. But I was drawn to they had the Tyrael-esque robes, and the Custodes have that golden armor. And while I don't have full-on robes, they get cloth effects, and they're like Imperious. And once you learn who Imperious was, they're like Imperious, and we have Tyrael and Hadriel, and they had those figureheads, and that's what drew me to them a lot, was that kind of overall aesthetic and having that fandom background. So that's why the Custodes would probably be my pick. Like you, I do like elves, but it's weird. I like elves in like D&D. Even in D&D, I've kind of gravitated more to being a human class because you just jack of all trades, do whatever you want. Before you even pick a class, you just race human, do whatever. And in Lord of the Rings, I really like elves. But I don't know if as I gotten older, from being like middle school doing D&D and up and everything, as I constantly get older, I want to be a crotchety human. I'm always drawn to Space Marines because they're like, I don't want to literally be, okay, here's our modern military in the 41st millennium, aka the Guard. I don't want that. It's like, that's quite literally what they're like. Only here's a flashlight. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm looking to be transported to a new setting, and that's the Space Marines, transhuman, super soldier humans stuff. So I don't know what it is. I that's one of the reasons why I never could get invested outside of Space Marines, is because, well, Necrons are cool, but that's not human. They're robots, which is like, well, what's the big deal? Well, they don't have the human xenophobia. I want my human xenophobia. So, what would you say for this hobby, for anybody who's getting into it, who's listening, since, between the two of us, you got over 3 decades of experience, which
roughly
is really sad to hear me say.
Combined,
yes.
You're only 5 years younger than me.
Right. And we might actually be more like 3 years younger, or 2, depending.
Yeah.
I have to fine tune my years. I don't know. But like, that's really sad. But anyways, what would you say was most surprising for you when you're like, I'm doing Eldar, steep learning curve be danged. I'm doing these guys. I'm getting involved. I want to give me this cornflakes box of models I have to put together. What did you not expect to be as difficult as it was, or what do you just expect to just be like, this is more than I bargained for?
Let's see. I'd have to say probably the biggest. It's really tough to say. I never really sat there going like, "Oh man, this is difficult," or like, "Man, I didn't expect this to be like this," or anything like that. I think probably the most frustrating part about the hobby was not realizing super glue was a thing. Believe it or not. I was using Elmer's glue.
Wow. See, I was using rubber cement.
I did use rubber cement eventually, but I was using Elmer's glue to put metal models together.
Yeah, it doesn't work out too well.
No, it doesn't. And it got at one point my parents were thinking of possibly not letting me continue because when working on my first fire prism, I slit my finger open. And had to be rushed to the emergency room.
Nice deep cuts.
It's there was a lot of stuff. There was less stuff that I like. Man, I got more than I bargained for, and more stuff that I did that looking back, I'd go, why did I think this was a good idea? The first and foremost was using sand from outside as base decoration.
Okay.
Because that attracted a lot of ants.
Right. It's not bad to do this, but you do, believe it or not, have to clean the sand.
Yes.
Which is such a foreign concept, really, when you think about it.
Yes. No. Put it in the bag, drop some dish detergent in it, run some water, and get it all nice and sudsy and drain it.
Right, which you would never think to do with sand. It never would cross your mind.
I would go outside, and I would collect sand that would build up at the driveway from the snowing, because they would run sand instead of salt. Now, this is the weirdest thing, and I'm going to get a lot of what from this, but I use house paint to paint my minis when I first started. I primed my minis with white house paint. Interior at the very least, but white interior house paint.
It was a different time, ladies and gentlemen. This is a time
and I
when
used apple barrel craft paint to paint all the minis.
Again, this was a different time, ladies and gentlemen. This is before models actually had good detail sculpted on every single model like they do now. And
I'd say roughly I think after my first my first 3 or 4 months was when I discovered GW paint.
Yes.
But then I'm sitting back there going, holy crap, I used house paint on minis.
Right. And also, this was a time when all you really had was, here in the States, easy access to was, for our hobby, testers, Tamiya paints to a certain degree, from the model hobby, scale model hobby, not miniature wargaming. And if you saw Vallejo and had any idea what the heck you were looking at,
I used to go to Walmart to get all my hobby glue. That's where I bought all my cement from.
Right. And then really the only wargaming paints you saw were Citadel, and maybe once War Machine became a thing, some of that stuff. But
no, War Machine P3 paints didn't come out till way later.
That's what I mean. Once those came out, that was like the second wargaming paint. What is this?
When War Machine first came out, because I was there when it started. Their hobby books were actually advertised 40K paints.
Oh yeah, I mean BattleTech, its starter box will advertise paint, because they don't make any paints.
Yep.
So they'll advertise either Citadel paints or Vallejo, basically all the paints that you utilize now anyway.
Yeah.
But But even back when I got into buying paints, all you really had was Citadel.
Yeah.
You didn't really have the. I shouldn't say you didn't have Reaper because they were a thing. They existed. It's just you had to not. Paints weren't carried in the variety paints are carried now.
Yep.
For our hobby, when you went to a gaming store for our hobby, it was okay. Well, we sell 40K, so we'll just sell 40K paints. Why would we sell Reaper? We don't sell. We have no reason to. Like, not because they're bad paints, but because, well, the best way to sell paint is for them to look at the box. The box says to use Macrage Blue. Oh, look, Macrage Blue.
Yep.
So like
Dark Angel Green.
Yeah,
Blood Red ink.
Yeah, it doesn't say use a blue paint of this hue or anything, and therefore it gives you freedom. And plus, a lot of these gaming stores are comic stores first, so the space is limited and not going to carry they'll carry Citadel.
Yep.
And that's usually it because they don't have the space to carry anything else unless they're a dedicated gaming store. So that's why I got into that a little bit sooner. But I used Testers paint for doing a couple of stuff originally. And I used contact cement for a good of my assembly career for the first 2 squads, nothing but contact cement. Then I was like, there's got to be a better way. This is just because it gets everywhere. You get little wispy things.
I know everyone swears by plastic cement, but once that goes on, you can't undo.
No, and that's not
unless you're James, you make super glue never break.
I don't understand how that happens.
I don't know, but none of your models that I've ever gotten from you either will strip or the glue won't break apart.
Listen, this is because back when when I paint, I imbue the special rule stubborn onto everything, and it is weird because they all strip for me just fine and break apart just fine.
No idea.
It doesn't make any sense. So, you know what I would have to say, and it's one of those things that I didn't, you don't really think about when I was getting into the hobby. I was surprised at how often I was like, now I got to go buy this. I thought I was ready. I had glue, I had paint. I even had a brush. It's like, oh, I need a smaller brush. I need better clippers, or I need this. All these little things. You get partway into making the model and you realize, I need this. I didn't think I need this. The stuff they don't tell you.
I was kind of like the reverse. I started with nothing and made it work. And then I expanded, and then when looking back, I was like, how did I do anything without this, or that?
Right, but it's just one of those things where they don't.
And why was I obsessed with making my Eldar mimic the Matrix?
Why not? But there's one thing I think the rule books of any miniature war game need to do a better job of saying, okay, buy our products, great, right? And even if they don't make it, they got to go, look, this is what you're going to need. You might be able to get by without this, but you're going to wonder why nobody told you this sooner. You're going to need these clippers. You're going to need this thing here. You're going to need this scraper. You're going to need this, and this. Is this a lot more than you probably bargained for it? Most likely. Is it going to cost more than what you expected to get into the hobby with right away? Yeah. Will these things ever go to waste? No. You're going to use them every time you make one of our models. So it's like, just get it now.
Now, here's a question.
Uh-huh.
What, from when you started to now, is no longer available and you miss it?
See, the thing is, I think you and I have similar. We'll have a similar answer here. I think your
probably
answer
not.
might be similar. It may or may not be.
I'm probably not, because the thing I'm thinking of wasn't around when you started.
No, but what I'm thinking of in terms of, you probably go, oh yeah, that too. Cote d'Armes stuff.
Oh, the company that made the original paints?
The company that made the original paints. You can still get those things, but
yep, it's harder to get.
It's hard to get, more annoying to get. But I like the original inks for Citadel paint stuff.
I didn't realize how much I missed the inks until I got Cote d'Armes current inks and discovered that the formula is patented by GW, so they can't reproduce it.
Right, that's really what I miss, because a lot of the other stuff that I've done that maybe you can't get or whatever, I I know, for example, I still own it. It's somewhere, and I hope it's not too wrecked. This little like diorama terrain piece though of the broken stained glass window
Oh
thing corner
yes.
piece. I love that. I have that. I wish that GW did more stuff like that.
Mm.
But really, it's the terracotta. The terracotta, the brazen brass paints you could get still from Cozy Arms aren't quite perfectly the same, but like Caliban Green is really close to Dark Angels Green, where I'm not really that upset. But
Yeah.
the original range was just if it's not like even had more colors. I think we technically have more colors now, but
It's more that issue we were so used to certain colors that we can no longer get perfectly.
right. And the inks, what I really like about now, Citadel washes fantastic. This current Citadel washes like Null Oil, which was Badab Black,
Yep.
and all those things, really ridiculously good. If you're an anti Citadel paint person, you owe it to yourself to at least get the washes. They're really good. But the inks were inks. They weren't pretending to be a wash. They were a literal ink. Literally, you could write with those inks if you wanted
Yep.
to. If you got water on them, they would run. They were quite literally inks. And
I still have a bottle of dark green ink.
I have all the inks somewhere. Hopefully, they didn't completely drop. I was using the purple ink for the weapon haft for like a power sword or a whatever for Deathwing, just to make any rope tassels were done in purple just to pop a little bit. Among stuff. I really like those inks, and that's that's for me what I can think of at this moment. But for you, to turn this back on you, what this Ramacast is about, what do you miss?
The one thing, the things that I miss the most that you can't get anymore is a two-parter. The first part is the old original jungle plastic trees GW used to make. They were terrible and garbage, but I love them.
I do remember those things, but I remember seeing a bunch of articles how you could turn those into massive artillery explosions.
Yep. And the other thing is the old Space Marine cardboard buildings.
I have seen those.
I have one. I still have one of the Imperial Bastions.
Nice.
And my gaming group has a couple of the old, bigger, complex ones. But like, I miss those. They were simple, easy to build, and they just look super cool.
I miss the Rogue Trader Rhino. I own one. It's just a trapezoid.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's nothing fancy. In fact, the current Rhino kit way better as a kit. But I like that. I don't know why. I think again because I like the Horse Heresy look a lot of stuff. I like that 30K time period look. I like that original Rhino a lot. Not only the Rhino though. The land speeder was silly looking. It was like, hey, look at us. We're flying around on two lawn chairs. Hooray!
It's coming back.
I know, but why? It's like, but like
because according to the fluff, that's what they looked like originally.
Yeah, it's just so sad. But I never got to use it, but I do miss the old Citadel pots.
The old Citadel pots were great, but they had their flaws too.
Oh, of course they do. Any of the pots do, but
they are much better than what we have today.
What we have today is horrible, and I don't mean the blacktop pots of old. I mean the screw tops before that.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I still have those.
Like,
did I? My last one died, but I remember using a pair of pliers to get those off because the paint would dry lock them, and I needed the pair of pliers to get a good grip on them. But
and if you ever want to
good.
re-experience that for you and anybody out there, get Tamiya paints. It'll do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But, like even if I don't use the clear paints that I own, every so often I just open them so they don't get dry locked. It's like no, you will open easy for me. But
and we used to put marbles in them because the tops were looped just great. So when the marble hit it, it had a little cup that it would go into. Perfect,
nice.
Glorious.
You know what I guess outside of what I mentioned, what I do really miss. I miss GW. We have the how to paint Citadel model stuff. We have the how to paint Citadel tanks. still being sold. I miss the old stuff. I have the book somewhere and I want to find it. When they did a book on how to make terrain for their games, that was great because they make a whole bunch of kits for terrain, which are great. Don't get me wrong, but they did a thing on how to cut out like rock pillars and canyons and how to
Yep.
do stuff. And this is back when GW sold a foam cutter. Like
Yep.
they sold more terrain level building stuff. I miss that because
And
Not like it's
they used to in the White Dwarf print templates for you
Right.
to cut out those things out of cardboard and stuff. I actually still have some of the old White Dwarfs where it has templates for making the cardboard city.
yeah, and they used to have that on their website too. When the website was more article-y and the store was separate. It was store was a separate section on the website, and then the rest was all articles. I do like that old setup of the website a lot better, but the setup's not bad. It's just I like the other way because there's more articles on it. I feel like the GW approach and philosophy for what they're doing stuff nowadays of is more inviting to new players, which is a good thing. A bit easier, like if the fact that, for example, Deathwing Terminators, Deathwing Command Squad, Deathwing Knights are all one kit, but they're showcased 3 separate times.
Yep.
I'm okay. I mean, it's silly to me because they're all elites anyway, so what's the beat? But whatever. But for a new player, if you just saw how it used to be in the past, we would just say Deathwing kit, you would go, okay, well, what does that make? Now you know that no matter what you click, even though you get in the same exact box, you know it's making with confidence what you clicked on. It's better for people to navigate and get into and not be confused on what they're purchasing. But I like the old mentality of GW as well, where it's like, here are all our kits. Here's how to make terrain. Here's how our models and everything. But we can't make literally everything, although we're the only company that pretty much is all-inclusive. You don't have to go anywhere else but us to play the hobby, right? You need paints, we got you. You need brushes, we got you. You need all the other hobby stuff, we got you. You need a transport box, we got you. We got everything you need. But we can't make absolutely everything. So here's a book on how to make terrain. Because we can't sell you hills. I mean, we can try. Nobody's gonna buy it because you can just cut it and make it yourself. And here's the foam cutter. Again, you could buy a foam cutter elsewhere, but we sell it too. It's like I love that about them.
I learned so much from GW on how to build terrain. It makes me wish that I had my own place so I could actually build terrain, knowing like I have all this knowledge that they've taught me, and I'm like, I can't use it. One other thing I miss, not as badly because just with the way that the meta is now and the mentality GW has, it's not as needed anymore. But I miss the bit selling.
Yes, I think now I get. On the whole, I do get why GW stopped doing that.
Yes, and
do.
it made sense. And nowadays they really don't need it because they kind of to a degree try to not promote as much of what the bits selling was intended for, which was conversions.
Yeah.
But I miss it because, I always need that one gun and I don't want to buy a kit for the one gun.
What I loved about it was you could, again, and you're right, they don't really. The one problem I have with the current state of the game is that it's all as new stuff comes out, it's all here's how you build it and this is how it can be used and that's it. There's very little in terms of upgrades, right?
Yeah.
In comparison to in the past. But what I loved about it was, for example, I love the Ultramarine Honor Guard models, but I only wanted one. So I went out and I bought one. Instead of buying the kit, I bid ordered the Honor Guard and the backpack. And it was that was really cool. If you wanted to, for like a Space Marine captain, you could go out and go, I'm going to bid order the Lightning Claws, I'm going to bid order this, I'm going to bid order this jump pack, and we're going to make myself a Blood Angel, whatever. You know? Like you could build a character quite literally out of the bit store of theirs, which was really cool. Also, it made going on eBay buys where things were incomplete but for really cheap great because you go, okay, what am I missing? I'll bid order it. And then it's still cheaper than if I bought it new. Outside of the not promoting it, it was wasteful because they're not printing, they're not making to order. They would have to open up a box and hope the rest of it would sell.
Yeah, no, that was one of the big downsides to it.
Like that's why once they start 3D printing stuff kits,
Hmm.
because it's gonna get there. I'm hoping once GW or any company starts 3D printing their models full on,
Mm.
I want them to have a printer set up for bit ordering because then you can just literally just print the bit
Yep.
and go. And I think that would be a good way to resurrect it because that would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, because then there is really no excuse outside of, well, we just don't want to. Which,
Yeah.
if they said, listen, we don't want to do that because we just don't want to, I know, whatever, I would respect that over an attempt at a clever lie. If they just went, listen, we're too
Yeah.
lazy, I'd be like, you know what? I feel you. I feel you on that one. I appreciate that. That's fine. But now, would you say when you found out about Forge World proper, was it while it was cool? What for you was it a little bit deflating? Like, oh look, all this cool stuff we're never gonna see easily here because it's all in Europe, in the UK, or was it a case where you thought I'll never buy this stuff anyway?
Um, it was more a, it was more a, um, what's the word? It was never like a, oh, we'll never be able to get this or anything like that because when we looked at the website, we did discover that they would ship to the US. So we were like, ooh, that's awesome. And then we had a game store that would order for you so you don't have to pay the shipping. Um, so it was more a case of, ooh, I really want that mini, but I can't afford it. Because this was back in the day when Forge World only made the super heavies. There was only one mini that I can recall, most likely because it was the only thing that I could I could personally use in my army at the time, that they sold that was the most practical, which was the Wave Serpent. Because back when I started, there was no Wave Serpent model. If you wanted a Wave Serpent model, you needed to find the White Dwarf that had the article on how to convert a Falcon into a Wave Serpent, because it came with all the templates that you needed to make out of plastic card and all that jazz. Um, so this was a big deal, and I remember when my friend, he bought the Wave Serpent, and we were all like, "Ooh, it's a Forge World model." Back in the day, Forge World models were like odd and like seen as like this ultimate collector's piece. So when I got back into the game, during my little break, it seemed really weird that it kind of flipped and everyone was like, Forge World's the worst thing ever. And I'm like, how can you say bad things of these beautiful models? So that was kind of like with me what Forge World was. Is Forge World was that like dream boat where I'd always sit there and go, one day, and always thought they were the coolest things ever.
Yeah, I have the same mindset, and even to this day, I look at it, and even though it's like, hey, buy this Mark III armor or Mark II armor or whatever, or like these upgrade pieces, which is a lot more attainable than what Forger was in the past. I still look at it with some reverence because they're good quality. They need to work on their getting the release agent off of their stuff before shipping it. Maybe doing some cleanup. I mean, there are third-party companies that clean up the resin before shipping it. Come on. But outside of that, they've definitely got a lot, leagues, eons better with their instructions. And the fact that the segment, for example, have like GW level instructions, where if this was in the past, it would be like it would just be a piece of paper that says, "Make
Good
'em."
luck.
Yeah, just make it. Good luck, make it. So like, I remember like when we got our Warhounds, right?
Ah.
That those instructions were like the most intricate construction on there was making the foot. Everything else was like, and then the hip bone connects to the leg bone. The leg bone is basically what the instructions were. Like, we got the most instruction out of the feet, and then everything else was like, well, obviously the arm connects to the shoulder. Duh. It's like, oh, they might have all written that, but like, so they got a lot better that way. But this was, I remember back also looking at Forge World, seeing they shipped to the US, seeing that I can never get it. Seeing Forge World models in person was a big deal. at that time. And this was also back when, oh, you want a drop pod?
Yep.
You have to get it from Forge World, which was so silly. It took them forever to get the drop pod in GW, considering the drop pod wasn't anything new.
Yeah.
In fact, so many people just used red solo cups as drop pods because to represent where they landed, because nobody was gonna buy. Nobody could afford a drop pod from Forge World.
Back in the day when I started, drop pods were just a special rule, which was called "and they shall know no fear" and drop pods.
Yeah.
And it basically just meant you could put your dudes in reserve and just pop them somewhere randomly on the table, and you had to pretend a drop pod fell from the sky.
Yeah, they really were limited in the fact they didn't have anything prepared for it. But so that, I mean, then Forge World had the drop pod model. I was like, ooh, they got a Dreadnought drop pod.
They added the Space Marines that you could put inside the drop pods.
They did, and they had the Dreadnought drop pod. I'm like, that's cool. And then and then GW made the drop pod. I'm like, oh, okay. But and this was also back when the Baneblade was armor cast, and then Forge World as well. There was no Baneblade kit. The Baneblade was Forge World, and it was just like, look at that tank. Oh my god. There were no knights. They were just some fluff. Like in a lot of ways, I like what Forge World has turned into, but in some ways, I miss the exclusivity of it a bit. Like, do I love the segment Terminators? Of course. Do I love the Horus Heresy upgrades for the Space Marine Legions? And do I love the mechanical infantry and all that stuff? The Death Korps Krieg? I'll accept that because that's a full army of just Forge World models. Same thing with the Elysians.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about you, but I miss the fact going, whoa, he's got a Forge World model. You know, like that was cool. Like even when somebody got a Dreadnought, I was like, that's a Forge World Dreadnought. Whoa.
I do definitely miss I'm saddened by the fact that Forge World went from that, whoa, you got Forge World, where I used to go, I got a Forge World model, and everybody was like, dude, and now it went to, oh, why? They're so lame. It's like, they're beautiful.
Yeah, to this day, their Forge World models are top notch. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
They are really good looking models, and you get to see, I feel, the evolution of GW's capability for making certain models, because the Baneblade could they do plastic Baneblade? They probably could have earlier. It probably wasn't as cost effective as it was when they did it, right? So that's why it was always a resin thing.
Yep.
Because of its size and its awkwardness. Then we had the Valkyrie and the Vendetta.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think there was a Vendetta. I think it was just a Valkyrie.
No, it was just the Valkyrie. GW made the Valkyrie,
Vendetta.
And then Forge World made the Vendetta conversion kits.
Yeah, and then GW has the kit that made both now, and they don't do it. But like, that flyer again, that was a Forge World original.
Yeah,
that's why when we saw the Tiger Shark go away, like maybe Tau they'll make it for no, but but like I think like the Knights, right? They were not like yes, that was more of like coexist with each other, but like the Knight kit was something that came out by GW when it did. I feel really because the time was right and the capability was there to truly do it. So I look at some stuff from Forge World, especially if they kind of phased out, and I go, well, maybe we'll see GW pick it up.
Maybe.
And just like the Orc Fighter Bomber. Like there's a lot of the flyers were originally
yep. Oh man, to this day, I'd have to say, as much as I do love the Thunderhawk, like it's probably one of my favorite flyers out there. The ones that I miss the most are the Eldar Thunderhawks, the Vampire Raider and the Vampire Hunter. I always loved how those looked, and I really want GW to bring them back so badly.
What I liked, and I was kind of sad to see them get more options, I loved how the Necrons just had the pylon for the longest time. It's just, here's the pylon, nothing else. The gigantic Canaptech like centipede thing they have is cool, but I really I just really like that like Cryptech centipede thingy. But like, I just like the fact that it was like, check out the Titans, check out these gigantic flyers, and all that. And then okay, what's Necron got? Stationary pylon. It could
And
go
that
anywhere.
thing is no joke, man.
No, it's not. It could deep strike basically onto the board wherever you want it, and then it just wrecks face. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm down with that. It's just funny because it's like, what's the most technologically advanced race got? A turret.
The Canaptic Tomb Sentinel. That's what it is.
Yeah, that thing is really cool.
And then there's the Canaptic Tomb Stalker.
Yeah, they're cool, but then there's that. I just love I found the humor in the most advanced race in 40K has a turret.
Basically.
It's just a gigantic turret, and I was okay with that.
One thing that I also really one thing I miss from Forge World is the Tarantula Sentry guns.
Those were cool.
Well, some people be sitting there going like, well, that they do have Tarantula Sentinel guns. No. I'm talking about the ones designed and inspired from Dawn of War. The one where it was the heavy bolter entrenched in the ground.
Yes, that the one that basically Dawn of War was built off of.
Yep, that thing is so cool.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculously cool. Now, do you like? Silly question, but do you like the character series design from Forge World?
I do. I enjoy them a lot. I wish I could afford all of them.
Yes. Now, would you like to? Now, as much as I like GW making special characters, would you like to see, for example, GW's Azrael, and then Forge World's character series Azrael, GW's Lorgar, oh not Lorgar, Logan Grimnar, Freudian slip, and then Forge World not making it like 3 times the size or whatever, but then Forge World being able to just have free reign to make a truly epic pose. You know what I mean? Like and do stuff that way.
If I was given an option, be able to purchase from GW the characters from 40K, Azrael, Belial, Logan Grimnar, Ragnar, Astrath the Grim, or have them switch over to Forge World's character series, and that's it. That's the only ones I could get. I would make that trade-off.
I would too, because I already own Azrael, so so if it was,
I own Azrael too. If they make a new one, I'm buying it.
Oh, of course, but I see now the Primarchs obviously are bigger models, so they get to do a bit more with them. But even when you look at Forge World,
I purchased the Amon model. I love that mini.
It's a really cool looking model. I mean, the Osiron pattern Dreadnought's a Dreadnought, yes, but then you look at Bjorn the Fellhanded and you're like, well, what can you do there? That could be really cool. But I look at the character series for the Horus Heresy, and I see real dedication there, right?
Yes.
I see, not that it's not that doesn't look like Azrael. Of course, GW's Azrael looks like Azrael, but
yes.
I see wow, there is a real sense of painstaking pride, if you will, to represent a model the way in which we envision it from the descriptions from the books or the old card game art for the Horus Heresy particularly.
And also, I feel with that there's a dedication, I think, in it feels like a lot of their minis, they're channeling their inner hobbyist.
Yes.
And going, if I was a GW hobbyist and I had a GW model, what pose would I transform it into? Just going off of using Amon as an example, he is rushing forward, ready to cast the psychic power. He looks like he's in a battle. Whereas if GW did this, he would probably just stand there. Maybe he'd be pointing with his weapon in a ready pose.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. The Chaos Araman model is fantastic. Even the Burning of Prospero Araman model is fantastic, but it doesn't have the same dynamism, if you will, as Amon's. It's a very Amon's model is very good. Even when you look at it outside of his little mini diorama thing, when you take its base
Yeah.
out of that base, it still is a very good
Yep.
looking thing.
Like Sigismund's model, I feel that's how he would pose when getting ready for a duel.
Oh yeah, no, they nailed. I mean,
Though why doesn't he not have hair?
well, he's never really been depicted with hair.
I think in some of the books he's described as having some hair. Like I remember it being like a lot of it going, why is he bald?
Well, he could always have shaved it. I mean, they
Possibly.
Space Marines do a lot of head shaving. But like the one thing that I never understood is when people are like Rogel doesn't have a mustache. I'm like, when did he have a mustache?
You want to know where that's from? Do you know where that's from?
No.
Have you heard of the series What If the Emperor Had the Text to Speech?
Well, yeah, I get that.
Rogel Dorn, when he takes off his helmet and reveals he's Rogel Dorn, has a giant beard and mustache thing going.
Right,
and
but
everyone decided that's Rogel Dorn.
Yeah, but even outside of that, like with that, like people started trying to cite stuff in the fluff that he has a mustache. I'm like, you are making stuff up here.
Because it's because the way the Emperor Text to Speech did it, and they do, and everyone just loves how they represent Dorn in that. Everyone has been convinced he's always been that way.
Right, but it's just like he's never once.
It's kind of like it's kind of like. It's like I forget what that term is, but it's that term where everyone remembers everything, something different, but we all remember it differently, exactly the same way.
I know what you're saying, and I would get it if we haven't had any images of Dorn before now, but we've had plenty of art of Dorn before the text-to-speech did that. Like, there's no reason.
Because of this image, everyone is convinced that image of Dorn is from an artwork of somewhere. So when he came out, everyone's like, where's his mustache? And I'm like, he's never had one.
Right, like, if you look at any of the Horus Heresy novel series that have Dorn depicted on that, you look at
Great
the old...
Torn of Dorn! Look at the Torn of Dorn book.
Yeah, like the Lightning Tower and stuff, the imagery of Dorn there. And then, like, you look at the old Horus Heresy card game art where you can see him.
Yeah.
At no point does he have a mustache. And then people are like, what's with the chainsword? I'm like, have you not seen him depicted? He's got a massive kill you chainsword. I don't understand what the problem
The only
is.
complaint I've heard about the chainsword from people is it looks too small. And I'm like, it's the size of a legionary.
Yeah, also he's holding it pommel down.
Yep.
Like if you look at it from the floor base to where the pommel is up to his chest.
Yep. No, but apparently, like the only complaint I've heard is some people feel like it's too small. I'm like, how much bigger do you want it?
Right, like this is bigger than an eviscerator. This is huge.
The only Forge World model that I think didn't do so well is Fulgrim. I don't mind his posing. It's his face.
See, I like how they captured Fulgrim because Fulgrim has the crazy face. Like he goes full blown crazy and like.
I think what it is like I agree with most people with it looks like it looks like a dog with a hairdryer. Just looks like he's just getting air blown into his face.
I think they captured like if his face was mouth closed, and he wasn't screaming or doing what he's doing, that would be Fulgrim's face. Like I think they got him. The thing that's weird about him,
certain painting, if you paint him in a certain way, he does look a little bit better. But like the Forge World presentation of him, I don't really like.
I don't mind the Forge World presentation, and the problem with faces is. That is truly, like you mentioned, it's up to the painter to truly capture. Yep. So, and I know that's why
a good example. If there's, I forget this article, but there's an article where someone shows the GW, painting of I think it was a succubus, and then next to it they paint a guy who painted the model. When you look at them, you go, that's not the same model.
Right.
Like the non-GW one looks so much better, and it was only because of just how he was painted.
The thing I don't like about the Fulgrim model, and it's a nitpick, is that he doesn't have any like ribbed armoring around his neck. Like you can just look down, and like if you could look into his armor, you'd be able to see his like breast, like chest plate and chest and everything. Like his neck, he doesn't have like soft armor there at all. You just see bare neck. But the only issue I have with like I like that's Fulgrim armor, that's his armor, that's his sword, that's
Yep.
him. He looks so out of place by himself.
Yeah.
Like the posing they gave him and the posing that they gave
Manus.
Manus is that they're a little out of place by themselves.
Yes.
And when you put them up together, Manus is smashing Fulgrim in the chest. Like it's very much Fulgrim's getting beaten bad in the posing when they're put together. Like it just doesn't. It's not a good dual pose.
It's not a good dual pose because I'm sitting there like they're both mything each other. Like
Right.
at least when they did it better. All the other dueling poses has them charging at each other. I get where they were going with the two minis because they were trying to recreate that famous artwork of Fulgrim decapitating them. They just should have moved them closer together. I think if they were closer together, it would look better. But you're right. If you don't have the other model, you're like, what?
He just like Ferris looks like he's getting ready to hit a baseball.
Yeah, he really does.
It's just a little out of place.
Like one of the cooler ones, in my opinion, is Angron because you see the two Marines falling after he just cut them down.
Oh, I know. Angron's one of my favorites because it captures Angron. Like there's no going. You know what I think they could have done? And my answer would be nothing, except making his chain swords, his chain axes actually move and have smoke come out of them. Because
he's very. I'm not a big fan of Angron, but this is a really cool mini.
Sevatar, really good.
Savitar is really good.
Nathaniel Giroux is fantastic. That's him.
Yes, I have him.
Constantine Valdar looks really good. I have to say all the Alpha Legion stuff, like Armillus, Dynat, and then Alpha Arius, so good. Like they are so good. And I will say this: I don't know what's the deal with the little red crystal on Alpharius' helmet. But
yeah, that is a little weird.
But like he's so good. So I guess what you're saying is if, for example, like Sigismund, Aemon, if they went, okay, new line of character series, 40k style, check out our first redo Marneus Calgar and stuff like that, you'd be down like, okay, this is how you buy character series models?
Yes, I would. I know I would totally be down, and I would not complain if GW just said, you know what, all the special characters are character series models now. I would be totally fine with that.
I'd be okay with that. I would think that then this is where GW would have to say, hey.
They would have to at least start making it where you can buy them through GW's website.
Yeah, you get
even if it's the only Forge World models you can buy via anywhere, no issue, I would still be like, I'm down with that.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely would because I don't mind having to purchase something from Forge World for as much as I like.
I would pay premium price for that kind of stuff.
Especially like outside of spaceship stuff. Like I'm thinking,
Eldrad, Uthwain,
Anrak here, the Traveler looks great already. Imhotep the Stormlord looks great already. Could you imagine
Phoenix
a
Lords?
Necron?
The Phoenix Lords, if they got that kind of treatment.
Like I could only imagine what like Necron Overlord special characters and the Cryptek special characters would be like character series wise.
That would be pretty cool. Be pretty awesome to see those guys.
Well, yeah, I just
think a new Dryzar, especially if they did like the 5th ed, 6th ed Codex image of him where he's kind of like twirling with the blades. They'll be like, oh, that looks so cool. Why is he holding his blades up going, I'm a mantis?
Because mantis are scary.
Nothing about the incubi even represents mantises.
No, nothing does, but hey, they do it anyway. Now we'll say this, going back to Chaos Araman, going to Chaos Typhus, those models are like, I'm not saying they're character series models, they're close, and they never really will be because you don't have a mini diorama to go with them, but that's to me like GW going, this is us doing kind of what Forge World does, only on a much more mass producible, easy to do scale.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I just feel like Abaddon, Najal Stormcaller Power Armor, Ragnar Blackmane, even as much as I love Azrael, he is very slender. Models that if you look at it and you trace him back, you go, wow, this model is 15 years old. Yes, it's no longer pewter, but this mold, if you will, this look is over 15 years old, or over 10 years old, or close to 20 years old. Can we get something really fancy now? I think
I'm starting to think that what's going to happen is once, like, it looks like this year is going to be get the last of the codexes out, and once that happens, that's when we'll get a new Vec, a new Azrael. That's when they'll focus on new minis, I think.
that would be sweet because I would love to see character series level of 40k characters because there. Do you need to run character models? No, but character models should feel suitably characters, right?
Yes.
And I know that GW can do it, and I know without a doubt Forge World would kill with a new Dante. Like Forge World would knock Dante out of the park, and I know GW could do similarly if they would just do it, right?
Yep.
So what? Okay, if character series for 40k was a thing, be it from GW or Forge World, whoever, just for basically a character series is coming. Which one would you be most happy to see happen? Which would you be the least happy to see happen?
Ooh, let's see.
It could be more than one. It could be a couple. But like, what
Okay,
like...
most happy to see would be a new Vec because I think the Dark Eldar deserve to get one of their characters back. And Dryzar because I just think I'm like he's such a cool model. Like Dryzar is one of those minis where I looked at the mini when I first saw him. I'm like, okay, he's a mantis person. And then I read his fluff and was like, okay, this guy's cool. His model doesn't represent him well. And pretty much all the Dark Angel ones, because I feel too many of them are very static-y and too much chessboard piece-like.
Chessboard piece.
Ones that I think I would be like, I don't know if I would be really cool with that. Probably Astroth the Grim, because I really like his posing.
Right.
And probably I'd say maybe Malleus Calgar, because...
Oh yeah, Monaris Calgar's Terminator model is fantastic.
I think he looks pretty ballin' the way he is.
That's true. Now, what would be most curious going on? Wonder what they could do.
I would have to say the Phoenix Lords, because recently Gav Thorpe talked to Jarvis Johnson, who did all the Phoenix Lords, and he asked him, oh, what would you redesign with them? And he gave a list of like vague answers. Like he didn't get very detailed except for like one or two pieces. And I sat there going, I actually would like to see what you would redo them as.
Fair enough. I think I'd be most happy to see, as a Dark Angel fan, anything Dark Angel, right? So like, now Azadai is fantastic. I don't think he needs anything, but Azrael, I want to see how impressive they can make Azrael, especially if they give him a helmeted option. But I like my Watcher in the dark, sure, but it'd be cool to have like the Watcher just kind of strolling around, with like give him like a camera. I don't care, and then like have him wear the helmet. But outside of Azrael, I'd love to see done, and then the models that I even like for stuff I don't like Abaddon.
Yeah, he needs a new mini bad.
Abaddon needs a new mini because Abaddon is the anti-Marneus Calgar.
Yep.
In terms of their codices, they're the two big power hitter special characters. Yep. And Marneus is captured so well with his Terminator armor. And then you got Abaddon, who's like, I wear the same Terminator armor that you can get in a plastic kit now. Hooray! The only way you can tell it's me is my ridiculous top knot and war gear.
Yep.
So he would be great, especially like Forgel does a good Heresy era Abaddon. They could do a fantastic 40k Abaddon.
Yeah, you need new minis when people are using the Forge World versions.
Yeah. And then I'm not a Space Wolf guy, but for the love of Najal and Ragnar, my God, they need something.
You would think that Ragnar, the merriest of all the Sioux in all of Space Wolf history, you'd think they'd give him a better model.
Yeah, it's such an old model still. That reminds me. I remember when they sold Lamont Russ on GW's site for a while. The old pewter
Yep,
Lamont Russ for two
for
dogs.
yep, I remember because he was around for a while.
Yeah, he was. That was funny. But anyway, what I would least like to see, I would have to say, not that they couldn't do a good job, but Morneus is just captured so well in his Terminator armor.
Yeah.
They could knock out the power armor, I think, but like do that part. But the Terminator armor, Morneus, I wouldn't want to see. As much as I think they could do a fantastic job, I really like the new Farsight model.
The new Farsight model.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
I
like
like this posing a lot more than his
yeah.
original one.
So the one that he has now, I would be sad to see it go, but I know they would probably do something equally interesting.
Mm.
And there's not really too much else that I wouldn't want to see done because Fordral knocks stuff out of the park with their characters. Like they really do it so well. Like the fact that again it's a primer, but the fact that I had it's the weirdest compliment to give, but the fact that I had absolutely zero thoughts when I saw Horace's model. Like I wasn't like, oh my god, and I wasn't disappointed. It was more so I'm like, yep, no, that's from the art. Like it was just perfect. Like they perfectly captured Horace.
Yeah.
I would say personally, and it's a weird compliment to give because I'm not like I wasn't like, oh, it's amazing. I'm just like, yeah, that's Horace. Okay, what else you got? And like, but it was because it was just like, yep, I am satisfied 100%, no ifs ands or buts.
Yeah.
So I know they could do well. So I don't really have much else that I wouldn't want to see Fordral do. The one I'd be most interested to see Fordral do would be Shadow Sun.
Shadow Sun.
Because that would be interesting to see what they would do with that armor and that character. And I would really be interested to see what they do with any Necron special character in the of Cryptek or otherwise, just to see are we going to get some type of effect off of one of their pieces of gear, what type of different posing, like especially because we haven't seen a Necron dude from Fordral really yet.
Nope.
We've seen upgrades for like their command barge / their aircraft.
Yep.
And we've seen Canaptech constructs. We haven't seen a Necron, and that'd be a really cool way to be like, hey, check out this Necron I did. And be like, oh my god, this is amazing. Most likely would be the answer. But like, so that's what I would most like to see. So you got 2 decades in you of this.
Yep.
How far are you going to ride this train out, do you think? And what word of pearl-like wisdom would you impart on somebody that you wish was imparted on you when you got involved?
I can't see myself really stopping. Just
Well, I don't mean like getting out of the hobby, but I mean like at what point would you go, my plate is full?
right now, really. Yeah, no. Right now, I'm at that state of I gotta stop and just work with what I have because it's starting to get a little ridiculous.
I know that feeling.
What I would say to others that I wish others have said to me, and this is something I have said to others, is if you ever get that feeling of I'm done, I'm out, I don't want to do this anymore, keep something. Because the biggest thing I regretted is when I did take a break from 40K, I sold everything. And when I got back into 40K, I noticed one of the things that I've been doing most of was rebuying the old minis that I miss having.
That's a good point.
So like if you're done, save a little bit, save like your favorite HQ, your favorite troop choice, your favorite, save a small force because just in case that itch comes back. And worst case, the itch doesn't come back, you can always sell it.
Yeah, and especially considering the way this hobby works, even if you get rid of all the extraneous stuff, but keep, let's say, a 1500 point force or whatever equivalent type thing, you could come right back in and play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just got to know what the rules are and get learning again, but you don't have to add to it really. You can do a small game and get back into it. I would add to that, why do you have that feeling? Is it you're done with the game overall, or did you, what is very possible to do, picked the wrong force, or are you looking at it going, I'm out, I'm done, these Necrons are lame, I can't believe we went with this, or are you looking at it as I'm out, I'm done for the hobby? Because I've encountered a few players myself that were getting out, but I'm like, why? And it's like, I just don't like the playing the game with my force. And it's like, well, what do you play? What do you like to do? Did you know these guys existed? And it's like, well, no, I didn't know at the time, but I just stuck with it. And it's like, nothing's worse than going, I wish I knew this existed, right?
Yep.
But if you enjoy the hobby and the setting, then maybe, take a break, sell off stuff, and slowly try to get into the force you'd like. But yeah, no, that's it. I really like that. I wouldn't have thought about the idea of, keep something.
Yeah, no.
It makes a lot of sense.
Like, actually, as a prime example, when Phil was done, because he was expecting Imperial agents to do more than just be the digital codex, I was like, dude, you should really save some stuff. And he's like, no, I'm done. I'm like, okay, then how about this? I take your stuff and I'll use it, but if you ever want it back, you can take it back.
Yeah, I wonder if he will ever take it back.
I don't know. He might. We'll see when the sisters officially come out.
Yep. So with that, I think, words of wisdom, not so much to live by, but to quit by if you do decide to quit, is to do that.
Yep. That's the biggest thing I always tell people. And I had one person who quit, didn't listen to me, got back in. He's like, I should have listened to you, man, because now I have nothing.
Yeah, and especially holds true with some models. Like let's say Azrael.
Like right now, if I quit tomorrow, I will not get rid of my Bone Singers ever.
Right, exactly. And let's just say you quit, then they stop making Asmodai again.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they might bring them back, or they bring them back with a model you're not too fond of. You'd be like, man, I've only had that 7th ed, 8th ed model of Asmodai.
Yep.
It's like, that's another thing. Alrighty, well, with that said, I think we had a good chat session, kind of a glimpse into how we talk out when the recording light isn't on. It's between two old 40K people. With that, we came on my other day and I started bursting out laughing to myself. How we used to play games. And then we would people look at us like we were just crazy. Like my best example was when when I started off with I like to move it during my movement phase, and just kept going with that. We did the whole song.
Bum 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 bum.
That was fantastic. And it's like I like the movement.
I like the movement all over the world. I want you to take your models and move them, and when you move them, I want you to move them sweet and sassy.
And people just gave us a look like, what's wrong with you?
There's it's never a dull moment when you guys play a game.
It's like, well, you gotta have some fun. So it's just that's a lot of good gaming times.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to do a Ramble. I haven't done a Ramblecast in a while. I wanted to bore people for a long period of time again. So I thought, let me pick a topic. Let me interview one of the pillars of Fearless Games, which I'm a part of. So check out Fearless Games. We do podcasts once a month. We try to get some other stuff up there. We try,
we try.
It's just it's like Napa. I tried to be a good person. I said tried. But so that's what we do. You can always give that a check out, and also there's a little glimpse into just how we would chat normally, because nothing we said here would be any different if we were talking normally. Nothing was staged.
Pretty much the same.
Yep. So thanks very much for listening. Of course, you can leave questions, comments, requests, concerns, numbers of psychiatrists, whatever, in the comment section below. And we'll take it to heart. Check out Fearless Games. And you got any last parting words?
No.